Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Decision of Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host, Bill DeFilippo, joined today by my co-host, Matt Filipovitz. Matt, what's going on?
Bill, I am an everyday glasses wearer. I wear my glasses all day, every day, and I finally broke my glasses. I have had this pair of glasses for years, which was devastating. So I went and I picked out a new pair of glasses today. It's an interesting experience because that was my first ever pair of glasses. So now to go
Mm,
through and truly know what I want and view this as less of a necessity
mhm.
and more like
You
okay,
can like
like I
style
know.
it now, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that was very exciting. I don't wear glasses on when we do this podcast, Bill, because I am extremely is it nearsighted? I see things close very well, but I can't see things far away. So our YouTube audience does not see me with my glasses on very often. But it was a very exciting time today. Speaking of Bill, this is a good time for me to call out. We got a very nice YouTube comment a while back, and I wanted to make sure I gave this guy a shout out.
Okay.
Because if you're not subscribed on YouTube, be sure to. But new friend of the show, Full Twisted Grip, said the fact that RLR only has 384 subs is criminal. Most underrated PSU podcast by a mile. Still rock my RLR shirt from years ago. Shout out to that guy. Very, very nice
Shout
comment.
out to that guy. Yes.
Good plug. If you're not following on YouTube, be sure to follow us on YouTube as we
Yes.
post there. So,
Yes. Absolutely. Well, Matt, we were talking before the podcast about an epiphany
we
I had
were.
about myself over the weekend. So here's the thing. My girlfriend has been out of town for the last week plus, so I've been very bored and been trying to read more. There's a particular book that I picked up a, a bit ago that I'm just getting into now. It's called
Is this
Stalingrad.
the Mac? Oh, is this going to be the Matt Campbell book that he's
No,
recommending everybody
no,
read? That's
no.
where I thought you were going with this.
I'm not reading a book called like Leadership, How Leaders Lead by Leading, or whatever Matt Campbell likes to read. It's called Stalingrad. It's by a guy by the name of Anthony Beevor. It's a very dense book, but an absolutely wonderful book. It is unsurprisingly about the Battle of Stalingrad in World War II. On Friday night, I was bored. I decided to watch a movie, which I never do. I was just like, okay, screw it. I'll pull up the old television and watch something. Have you seen the movie Sisu? Sisu? I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
No, but I've seen trailers for it. Is that about the
Okay,
guy is it Norway in World War II?
Finland. He's
Finland. Yes.
he's a Finland. He's a Finnish former soldier during World War II. The long and the short of the movie is that after the Lapland War, he like is a gold miner, and he, after finding a lot of gold, he runs into some Nazis, and then a lot of fighting happens, and he wins all of it. And it made me realize, Matt, that I'm 34 years old. I am not yet married. I do not have children, and yet I am doing the thing that every man does, where they get really into World War II. You can run from it. You could try to hide from it, but it is here. I am now at the point in my life where I'm like, damn, World War II is really interesting. And that's a very humbling thing to do when you're 34 years old, because I know that moment comes for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured I would be able to like push it off a little bit longer. Nah, man, we're getting into World War II, and we're starting in stuff that happened in like 1944 and 1945. So just jumping right towards the end of the entire thing instead of actually trying to learn more about it in a chronological and normal fashion. Have you done any World War II related reading or watching things that are not Inglorious Bastards?
Yes. Both my
Okay.
grandfathers were World War II veterans. My wedding
Salute.
ring is my dad's, and engraved on it is his wedding date, which is also in 1944. So after he was home
Nice.
from the war. So I did a lot of research on like the campaigns both my grandfathers fought in. So I am fairly well versed in some very specific tales of World War II. Yeah, it's absolutely
Interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah, it stinks because World War II real bad. Just I want to get out. This podcast does not. There was a lot of very bad things that happened in World War II. But you find yourself reading one thing, like you find yourself on the Wikipedia page for like one thing, and next thing you know, it's an hour and a half of like,
Hmm.
oh wow, look at how some of these Russian propaganda posters looked, or like, oh wow, like here's this, that, or the other thing. And it's so interesting. And I just wanted to wait until farther along in my life to be able to, or to feel compelled to really get into World War II stuff. But it's here. And I have what? about a month to finish reading this book, Matt, because we are now in August, which means camp is right around the corner, which means Penn State football is right around the corner.
May I recommend, Bill, for your World War II research, the Rome Arno campaign? I think that is an incredibly interesting part of World War II history. I have no way to segue out of this to now talk about Penn State cornerbacks, but man, we are close, Bill. We are under 5 weeks, baby. What is it? They report to camp on Tuesday, so tomorrow when this comes out and camp opens up, and Bill, I think I speak for all of us and a lot of our listeners too, where we're on those message boards waiting for tidbits to come from those well-connected folks to find out what's going on for Penn State in training camp. It's a really fun time. You know, media day, nothing ever really comes out of it, but Matt Campbell looks incredibly tan. So good for Matt Campbell.
Matt Campbell looks, oh boy, that man, he looks like he either fell asleep on a beach or I went to high school in New Jersey during the Jersey Shore era. And he looks like a lot of people I went to high school with who
good for Matt Campbell.
Decided that getting spray tans were a personality. Oh, don't get me wrong. It looks good on him.
He earned that tan. He earned that tan. I'll tell you what.
I am sure that the process of getting that tan, he did it with grit, he did it with toughness, and he did it with the character that comes to define playing football at Penn State. Because that is just what Matt Campbell seems to do. He seems to say everything is about grit and toughness and character. And Penn State's cornerback room, Matt, I think is
we know these guys.
How
exciting! Finally, a group of guys we know.
There are two things about this room that I find absolutely fascinating, Matt. The first one is that this entire Penn State experiment, this roster experiment, is built around we needed to bring in guys from Iowa State, and the best guy that Iowa State had in the portal was Jontez Williams. He was the number 22 overall player in the portal. He was a cornerback. I think Ben Brahmer is the best player on the offensive side of the football. He was about 31 or something like that. But Jontez Williams was the best player on Iowa State's roster that jumped into the portal, according to the people whose jobs are dependent on knowing how good football players are. He ended up going to USC. He did not come to Penn State. And it's crazy because it is totally fine, because there's a pretty decent chance that the makeup of this cornerback room, Zion Tracy, Audavian Collins, Darius Dixon, Jameer Joseph, Joshua Johnson, Xavier Thomas, and then freshman and portal guys would have been exactly this had James Franklin stuck around.
Yeah, and I think that's the value of Terry. Like, guys want to play for Terry. You think back, Bill, not even like the Anthony Donko where he did the hire this man thing after Penn State beat the brakes off Nebraska. Like, this is Terry's room. Like, it's not, this is the guys that have been with Terry since they were recruits. Of course, if Terry Smith stays, these guys are going to stay, because I'm sure the way that entire team last year rallied around Terry once he got the head job, and it seemed like all of those guys would have died for Terry Smith. I think the cornerback room has been that way for a long time. Guys seem to have loved playing for Terry since he got to Penn State with James Franklin way back in 2014. So I'm not at all surprised a lot of these guys stuck around to play one more year for Terry Smith, 2 or 3 more years in some cases, like guys like Darius Dixon and the freshman you rattled off, Bill. This is a room that is incredibly stable. Obviously, some guys lost in the portal. We'll talk about that and who he played for. But this was Penn State's best cornerback grouping, at least the top 3 to end last season. And I think they can carry some pretty nice momentum into next season. And I love the fact that you rattled off all those guys, and there's really 3 guys who don't really play the same position, because I don't really think Zion's going to play outside all that often. He never really has. So the fact that you're pretty stabilized with your top 2 outside corners, and then you got, Zion Tracy, a guy that Matt Campbell and this coaching staff talks about, like he could be the greatest, defensive back in the Big Ten, the way they talk about his flexibility and stuff like that. I think it's just a really great room for Matt Campbell to come into in his first year. And again, all the credit in the world for Terry Smith, because we've heard stories, Bill, for a long time. Terry Smith is not the kind of guy who's going to make it easy for you to play cornerback for him. Like, you have to check your ego at the door. Like, Storm Duck came to Penn State, a guy who's been in the NFL for a while, didn't think he was going to last. And Terry Smith kind of not forced it, but how do I want to tell the story to where it's like respectful to what probably happened in hindsight? Like, Storm Duck came in, and there was the story about how at the end of camp, or spring ball, you have to rattle off where you fall in the depth chart. Storm Duck, an NFL guy, did not feel confident in Terry Smith's room that he was going to see the field and left after just one spring. So it's not an easy room to exist in. And I think it gives, again, it's all the credit in the world to Terry and to those guys for running it back one more time. And I think it creates some nice stability for Penn State fans, especially, to feel like I know what a lot of these guys are and what they can be.
Yeah, so much of what we have done in this series has been trying to thread a needle between, like, okay, here are these guys that, you know, we kind of know about them. You know, the defensive end room is a really good example of this. Like, we as Penn State fans can kind of speak to what Ivan Kamoju and Max Granville are. They're not 100% proven commodities. I mean, you go through the roster and the list of like 100% proven commodities to Penn State fans. Very, very short list, but it's a lot of guys we can kind of point to and say, like, okay, I've seen this and this and this. I've seen this and this and this, and I like that. And we're trying to marry that with, here's what we saw out of these guys at Iowa State who are now going to have to take a step up in competition or whatever it is. Or like, they aren't guys that we have watched played hundreds of snaps because they haven't been Penn State players. And it's this weird like dance of, how does this complement this, and how is this going to work when we don't know a ton about this and the bits we know about that? Like, it's a weird thing that we have to do, just kind of the nature of college football in 2026. The cornerback room is a bit different. And that is because, as we've discussed, there is a very good chance, to go to something I said a minute ago, we would be doing this exact same episode had James Franklin stuck around, or had Terry Smith gotten the full-time head coach job, or whatever it might be. This is a room that Penn State fans, it mixes a couple of known commodities with guys that, you know, we've gotten a chance to see before. Like, Joshua Johnson has a pick 6 in his Penn State career. Johnson and not a Joseph, correct?
Johnson. I think it's Joseph. I think it's Jameer Joseph has the pick 6.
The alliteration is just absolutely killing me. Yes, it was Joseph who had.
I'm fairly confident it's Jameer Joseph. Yes.
So it's a bunch of options, and it's a bunch that we have seen either in big samples like Audavian Collins, like Zion Tracy, or in smaller samples like Johnson or Joseph or Dixon or whomever else. I think, to go off of something that you said, Matt, it is a big time bit of praise for Terry Smith that Penn State's cornerback room is what it looks like, because if they decide they're going to go in a different direction, or Terry Smith decides he's going to follow James Franklin of Virginia Tech, who knows what this ends up looking like. And instead, what I think you and I are both going to agree on a little bit later is that this is one of the rooms that Penn State should feel the best about on the defensive side of the football.
Easily. One stat, Bill, if you were to take a guess on who Penn State's leading returning tackler is, and that's not in terms of tackles last year, this is guys who played for Penn State last year who are back, who led in tackling. Do you have a guess?
I would have to say Zion Tracy.
It is not Zion Tracy, actually, Bill. It's Audavian Collins.
It's Audavian, yeah.
It is. This, I think, is going to be the only time this is ever going to happen. Bill, 3 of Penn State's top 4 returning tacklers are cornerbacks. That's just a little stat that I think is never going to happen again at Penn State by nature of how this season went. But it also highlights, Bill, yeah, these are all guys we know. Like, Zion Tracy has a pick 6 in his career, like you mentioned. Speaking of, Bill, another little quiz here for you. Do you know how many interceptions Penn State had last year? You want to take a guess?
I know it was low. I know it was something like 8 to 10 or something.
It's lower than that, Bill. It was 6.
It was a 7. 6.
It was 6.
I knew it was
not great.
crazy low.
It was not very great. And of those guys, 2 of them were defensive tackles. So, like, this is a cornerback room that, yes, a lot of it is returning, but at the same time, whether it be because of just the way the season went or what the Jim Knowles defense was, this wasn't a group that forced a lot of turnovers last year. Because, when you think about interceptions, you think about guys in the secondary. And again, this group of the guys who had picks last year, Jameer Joseph's the only returning player. Everyone else, King Mack, Alonzo Ford, Elliott Washington, like all those guys are gone. So there's a lot of proven commodities here, Bill. But at the same time, I do have a lot of concerns myself on their ability to go out there and be ball hawks. And we'll talk about the AJ Harris of it all in a little bit, that he kind of hogged the field and then kind of feels like quit on the team for a little bit there towards the end of the season. And I'm excited to see now what a Davian Collins and what Darius Dixon can do with the full-time starter designation on the outside. And again, Zion coming in, I think, is going to be a very, very, I don't think Zion Tracy is really going to leave the field, like, ever. I know they say they want to go 4-3 a lot of the time. This is going to be a 4-2-5 with 5 defensive backs. This is a 3 safety, 3 defensive back, Matt Campbell defense that we've seen for a long time. I still think to some extent or the other, and I'm excited to see how multiple they're able to be under Danton Lynn, because I don't really think he's ever had a secondary room or cornerback room with a piece like Zion Tracy before.
And if memory serves, there was a good bit of, I believe Matt Campbell was quite complimentary of Zion Tracy during
spring ball. He talked about him like he's never seen a player like Zion Tracy before,
which is wild because, absolutely. Here's his quote from Nittany Sports Now. I think Zion could be one of the best corners in the country. I think he could be one of the best safeties in the country. He could play nickel. He could do a lot. Listen, I do. And he also called Zion one of the best football players that he's ever coached. I don't mean this as a knock on Zion Tracy at all, because I think he's a very, very good football player. But damn, Matt Campbell, that is quite the bit of praise to heap on to Zion Tracy. And to get into the starters in this room, Matt, I think it's a pretty easy room to look at and guess who the starters are going to be. I would say it is 2.5 known commodities to Penn State fans. I'd say it is 2 just 100% sure known commodities in Zion Tracy, who been around forever, been a guy that James Franklin and Terry Smith and Tom Allen and I think Manny Diaz. I can't recall.
Yes,
he
played as a true freshman with Manny. Yes.
Yeah, and Jim Knowles, like, just a lot of people have relied on him. Davian Collins, who has just been like a really good and really solid football player for Penn State from the moment that he came over from.
Like, weirdly, what a great portal find by Terry.
State. Mm-hmm. I would say those 2 are 100% known commodities. If we were rolling into the Penn State season where it was just those 2 and then figuring out what the rest of the room was going to look like, I think we would feel pretty good about that. But to add one more thing to the room, what I would say is kind of the 0.5 known commodity is Darius Dixon, the former blue chip top 150 or so cornerback recruit, who he got on the field as a true freshman. He played a lot as a true freshman. And really the big question for him, Matt, is whether or not he is able to go from guy who got rotated in and impressed as a true freshman to, and I think this is a big ask of him, but a very reasonable ask of him with how talented he is. Can you now become one of the best cornerbacks in the Big Ten?
You've been high on Dixon from the jump. I mean, you mentioned he got on the field as a true freshman, Bill. It's not like he came from, like, no disrespect to my high school, Northampton, Pennsylvania. He played at Mater D, right? Like, he played at big-time football out in California. Like, he wasn't going up against teams that are going to run inside zone 45 times in Eastern or Central Pennsylvania. He played against quarterbacks that want to spin the pill. So this is a kid who I think is in for a massive jump in his second year in the Big Ten. And also, I feel like I'm going to keep on just heaping praise on Terry to keep a California blue chip top 150 prospect after just 1 year with 4 more years of eligibility now with 5 for 5. on your roster in Central Pennsylvania is a humongous win for this coaching staff. I'm excited.
Just getting him in the first place.
Yeah, getting him in the first place was crazy.
Getting him in the first place, getting him to never flip. I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't ever recall anything when he was in high school about like committed to Penn State and then took a bunch of visits or anything like that. Like he's just been rock solid to Penn State from the moment that he committed, and like, yeah, like let's rock. This is a guy that I absolutely want to place bets on to become one of the very best in the Big Ten.
And he played really well, I think, down the stretch. The Pinstripe Bowl was what it was. That was a miserable game for everybody. Nobody wanted to throw. Clemson didn't want to be there. And a lot of the teams on Penn State's back half of their schedule, Bill, let's be honest, weren't exactly throwing the football efficiently or well, except for Rutgers and KJ Duff. That was absolutely unreal what he was able to do to Penn State. And I think that's a really good springboard for him. And I think he's going to take that other starting outside corner job opposite of Adavian Collins, who has really come on strong. Like, I remember when you take a guy like Adavian Collins in the portal ahead of the 2023 season, I want to say that was, it may have been 24. Whenever Penn State played at Northwestern last, I remember he was on the roster. So that would have been probably 24. Whatever. When you take a guy that young in his career, not that highly recruited, and turn him into a guy who's can really play at an all Big Ten caliber level, again, that's a massive testament to this coaching staff. And I think that duo is a very, very strong starting group. And I'm excited that the backups, Bill, I feel pretty confident in Joseph and Johnson, both being guys over 6 foot, are going to be lengthy, rangy, Amani Oruwariye level players. And that's a massive compliment because Amani Oruwariye is still in the NFL. I saw today he's with the Ravens for training camp. So there's just so much talent up and down this roster. Yes, it's crazy unproven below those top 3 guys, but with how good the safety room is, I think you can really cover up a lot of sins with that cornerback room with 2 safeties that I think can be NFL Sunday players.
I'm glad you mentioned the size that they have in the cornerback room, Matt, because that was something when you go through the like size of the dudes they have in the room, it's, you know, the shortest dude that they have in there is Hunter Sowell, who is 5'10". Zion Tracy's big
brother of Chase. Let's make sure we call that out. Brother
Chase,
of wide receiver Chase Sowell.
Yes. Zion for a slot corner, 5'11". He's not a small guy by any stretch of the imagination. While Davian Collins, 5'11". Darius Dixon, 6 feet tall. Jameer Joseph, 6 feet. Joshua Johnson, 6'2". Xavier Thomas, another potential slot guy at 5'11". Sowell, as mentioned, 5'10". Then true freshman Tyrell Chapman at 6'2". It's a big room. It's a physical room. I'm really interested, you know, to kind of pivot away from the starters for a half second, just talking about this room in general. One thing that has become really obvious is that D'Anton Lynn, coming from the Tom Bradley school of bend but don't break, of keep things in front of you and don't allow big plays, I don't think there is going to be a ton of, okay, we're going to put you out on an island against this guy and you're going to play man-to-man and you're going to get cooked sometimes, but you just got to deal with it. I think Penn State is going to try and have big and long and rangy dudes throughout its secondary just to try and keep things in front of them. You're going to have to get your hand on the ball when it's thrown your way. You're going to have to tackle when you have an opportunity to tackle, stuff like that. I think James Franklin, by the end of his tenure, one thing that he really believed in, one thing that MLB really, that James Franklin really believed in was, you're just going to have to man your guys up. We are going to have guys at cornerback who are able to run with Jeremiah Smith, with Carnell Tate, with Marvin Harrison Jr., with all these guys. And I'm very interested in whether this room is going to, if that's a lesson that Matt Campbell thinks he's going to have to learn, or if Matt Campbell is going to have to learn, rather, or is this going to be a cornerback room where it's going to be about, you're going to have to be big, you're going to have to be long and rangy, you're going to have to tackle, as we're making a priority, stopping the run and preventing big plays. You're going to have to keep things in front of you. You're not going to have to worry about trying to lock this dude down. And if all of that is the case, to bring it back to Penn State's cornerback room this year, I think having a room where it's a bunch of guys who have played led by guys who have played a lot of football at Penn State, who kind of understand how you need to do things, understand how Terry is going to want you to have to play, get a sense of how Dan Lynn, who is a former defensive back, is going to want you to have to play. If that's going to kind of ease that transition to a new approach to playing quarterback, I might be talking out of my ass entirely here, but I'm very interested in whether or not this is going to be one of the areas where James viewed it one way, Matt Campbell views it another way. And as a result, not that we're going to have growing pains or anything like that, but the continuity that Penn State has in its cornerback room of guys who kind of just like know what they're doing is something that's going to be really valuable.
I still think they're going to go a ton of man. Like, I think the skill set all of them have just really fits well to man. I think, again, and you feel pretty confident, but Zion Tracy's not going to take very many reps outside at all. Like, he's mainly going to be a slot guy and a guy that kind of move around, almost like a hybrid safety linebacker kind of role. I feel really confident no matter who you put Zion Tracy on, whether it be a running back out of the backfield, a big tight end, you put him on a slot guy. I think he has the ability to cover all three of those body types given his size. Like, he's not skinny by any stretch of the imagination, despite his 5'11 stature, which I think is the same list as Davian Collins. Bill, you just rattled it off. I think Collins listed at 5'11 as well. So, yeah, there's definitely some good size here, especially amongst that top three. I think Darius Dixon has a chance to be one of the better cornerbacks to come through Penn State in quite a while. I know everybody keeps talking about Penn State. Not everybody. Maybe I'm the only one who really cares about it. Has never had a defensive back taken in the first round. Joey Porter Jr. was picked 32, but that was a second round pick because I think the Dolphins didn't have a first round pick that year. So technically, that's still the case. That's a lot of projection for a guy who never really took over that starting job. But the way Terry talks about him and the way he came on last year, I think Darius Dixon can be a hell of a Big Ten player for them. And they're going to need, for a while, but I feel like they've always had one corner who really stepped up. Maybe the exception to that rule was the Joey Porter Jr. Kalen King year when Kalen King was really strong and JPJ was what he was. I want to see if they have a true two-headed monster on the outside on cornerback. And if they're able to have that, that's a luxury that we just haven't seen in quite a long time. And Matt Campbell surely's never had. And I don't think Danton Lynn's really had that either. And I want to see what that looks like when they have the utmost confidence in your two guys to put guys on islands, have them go out there and make the play on the football, and then let the rest of the defense fly around and take control. But if this defense is going to take a step back to what I think we all want and expect the Penn State defense to be, it's going to start with these top three corners, especially those two on the outside.
Agreed. And it definitely helps that a thing that you and I have spoken about a bit this offseason, Matt, that it's not like Penn State is going to be playing a bunch of teams that are going to want to just like light them up this season. It should help Penn State considerably. That, you know, USC is the team that you circle for this, and their top two receivers from last year, Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, are in the NFL. Washington, they're a team that's going to want to put the ball in the air, and their top receiver last year, Denzel Boston, is in the NFL. Their third leading receiver, Amari Evans, I think he's in the Chiefs.
I think he got right. Speaking of, Bill, shout out Liam Clifford, signed by the Colts. Good for Liam.
Boy, I am quite frankly stunned that there is not another member of the Clifford family who is coming through on Penn State's roster this year, or on Virginia Tech's roster, either or. But yes, to bring it back to Penn State's quarterback room, it's a room where I think it has a very high floor because of these three guys. Because in Dixon and in Collins, you have a pair of guys who I really do trust to deal with just about anything that gets thrown at them. And in Tracy, you have a guy who has just kind of been there, done that, and done a little bit of everything. And if I'm circling a guy who I think is in for a really big season, I think it's him, for the simple reason that, like, it's obvious Matt Campbell wants to rely on him a lot and do a lot of stuff with him. So I think this is going to be a really, really good trio that Penn State builds its cornerback room around. Is there one guy from that three you think is like really primed to have a monster season like I do with Tracy, or do you think it's just kind of going to be spread between the three of them, Matt?
I think it's kind of what I said earlier with Dixon. I think he's going to take a really nice step forward. But I think that's an important designation, Bill, and I'm glad you asked this question the way you asked it. I think Zion Tracy is going to be a guy that makes a lot of the splash plays, but I think Darius Dixon, just by nature of, I think a lot of teams are going to really want to avoid this safety room. I think Dixon's going to have a chance to have a low key, you don't notice him kind of season. And that's a really good season for a cornerback. Obviously, I want him to be a ball hawk, but if you're a ball hawk, that probably means you're getting tested a lot. And I want it to be where Dixon shuts down that half of the field. And then teams are forced to change the plan. And then Zion pops up and makes a lot of plays and kind of stuffs the stat sheet a little bit more than everybody else. So that's kind of my take on this room. And I don't want to make it sound like we're overlooking Davian Collins at all, because I think he can be a really nice ball player as well. I just think he's been so steady Eddie for them for so long that he kind of said already everything you need to say about Davian Collins. He's going to play well. He's not all that handsy. He doesn't get called for a lot of penalties. Pretty quick. I think fastest guy on the team, or has been spoken of in that light for a while. And I think that's a great guy to have as one of your two outside corners.
Oh God, sorry. I'm just now being aware that as we all saw last season, Drew Aller is very good at getting brand deals. Apparently, his newest brand deal is with Meta. Something about apps rather than limiting access altogether. Let's focus on practical solutions like required age verification of parental. Drew, you're doing the Jason Kelsey thing where you're saying yes to everything that gets put across your day. You don't got to do that, brother. Please don't. Okay, neither here nor there. Sorry, I see something about Drew Aller and a sponsorship deal, and I immediately start rubbing my eyes, because if all of you remember, it was right after he got hurt against Northwestern that Dodge Ram decided to roll out its Terry Crews commercial with Drew Aller. That was very annoying. Yes, to get back to the cornerback room, moving to the guys that we think are depth pieces. Again, it's very repetitive off of what we just said, but other than Hunter Sowell, this is what Penn State's other than Hunter Sowell and Tyrell Chapman, the 3-star cornerback recruit they got from Nebraska. This is basically what Penn State's cornerback room is going to be. So I think we can say with a bunch of confidence, Matt, just because we've seen Terry Smith do this forever, they're going to fold Jameer Joseph in. They're going to fold Joshua Johnson in. They're going to fold Xavier Thomas in. Maybe they fold Tyrell Chapman in. Maybe they take a safety or two and have him play.
Maybe
nickel.
Ivan McDaniels, the Syracuse transfer, could get in there. I know he camped for them a while back. Could be a guy in there too. Yeah, there's a lot of options that I think they have to work with here for who they make CB4. Bill, were we talking a couple weeks back in 2016 about what cornerback made the play that LeBron was mad about? That was probably PI in hindsight.
That was Jordan Smith, yes.
Who was CB4 at the time. So CB3, CB4, CB5 gets on the field for Penn State in big moments. Historically, that's been a thing that happens. And I think Jameer Joseph's, maybe because he's top of mind, had that great pick six, one of the few true highlights when last season felt like it still had a chance to go pretty well. What was that, Nevada or Villanova, whatever game that was, really early on in the season. A guy who immediately flashed, and to do that as a true freshman is always pretty cool. I think there's options here for them to go out there and find a way. And again, I'm planting my flag as Jameer Joseph to take that outside cornerback number 3 spot, simply because he's the one I have the most data on. But that's not to say that Josh Johnson can't come in there and make a couple plays like that. Is it Christian Escu, the Georgia guy who's coming up here, the true freshman, maybe can make something happen? Again, there's options here for Terry Smith and company, but I really do feel like that the top 3 guys, and then maybe Joseph and Johnson as rounding out the top 5 of this cornerback room.
Yeah, it's worth saying McDaniels, a Syracuse transfer listed as a safety on the roster, might play some cornerback at 6'3" and 202 pounds. So another big, long, rangy guy. And Askew, who you mentioned,
that's skinny though. 6'3", 202 is not big. He's got some pounds to pack on.
6'4", 199 pounds. Again, listed as a safety on the roster. It's a room with a lot of guys. It's a room where Penn State's going to have a lot of options for what they want to do. But I think a lot of it it's all going to come. I think this is a room that is going to be very active early in the season, because it's not like maybe Dixon is a bit different just because he's such a young dude, but it's not like you're going to need Zion Tracy and Audavian Collins to get a bunch of, in all likelihood, get a bunch of snaps against Marshall, Temple, and Buffalo, maybe even Wisconsin and Northwestern, but who knows? I wonder if there's going to be a cornerback who gets absolutely flambéed by Northwestern wide receiver Griffin Wilde again, and then gets benched for the rest of the game. I am willing to bet that won't happen this year, but I what do I know? Maybe that's going to be the case.
That would be a good segue, Bill, for who we play for. But there's one thing I want to call out that I'm glad you talked about regarding the start to this season. Yeah, that's a great call, Bill, because a lot of the time I'm willing to bet Penn State's going to have big leads in the second half. Teams normally throw, and Penn State's probably going to go to their bench early. So I think it's a really great opportunity for young guys to get a ton of reps in the non-conference. And I tend to think Wisconsin and Northwestern are probably going to punch up a little bit and give Penn State some fits, so probably not there. But if you can hash out those first 3 weeks, hey, this guy played the best under the lights in Beaver Stadium. He's got to be CB3. He's got to be CB4. That's a great way to work that out on the field, because I feel like that's where he really likes to see where those guys shine.
Yeah, if there's one thing we know about Terry Smith is that he's not afraid to throw guys out there. I mean, the Indiana game, not the Indiana game, the Northwestern game last year was a really good example of that, because AJ Harris just was not up for it. Did not have a particularly good day. So he played 18 snaps on the day. Audavian Collins played 62. Elliott Washington played 46. Kenny Wosley Jr. played 39. Darius Dixon played 18. So I would not be surprised if we see a good amount of rotation in this room, a good amount of trial and error with this room. And then when Penn State gets to that game against USC, we are going to see that trio of Audavian Collins, Zion Tracy, and Darius Dixon, assuming that they're able to stay healthy, with not a ton of miles on them, really fresh, really ready to go. And if absolutely needed to go a little bit farther down the depth chart, that's where we see Terry say something like, okay, Jameer, we're sending you out there. Let's go see what you could do. Or, okay, Joshua, or okay, Xavier, whomever, get out there. You're playing corner. We're going to put trust in you. We're going to see what you could do. And I think that's I'm very excited to see how that goes, because this is a cornerbacker. There's a very good chance, Matt, if things go well, that we are back here next year going, okay, so last year we saw Darius Dixon, Jameer Joseph, and Joshua Johnson all perform really well for Penn State, and now they are Penn State's 3 starting cornerbacks heading into the 2027 campaign.
And all of them are over 6 foot. And now it's a completely just tall team now, because that seems to be Matt Campbell's big thing. We talked about it with the linebackers and the receivers. It's just the tallest team you can imagine. All right, Bill, where do you have this ranked on your ranking of the Penn State defense position by position? As a reminder for the folks at home, Bill and I both had the defensive line in there at 4th out of 4. Bill had the linebackers at the top of his list. I had the linebackers at number 3. Bill, where do you have the Penn State cornerback room ranked?
I've gone back and forth on whether or not I'm going to have it at 2 or 3. I'm going to put it at 2. And a lot of this is putting a lot of faith in Terry Smith. I think the safety room has the potential to be better, but due to the fact that we're going to be waiting for Jeremiah Cooper to get back and get healthy, and whatever growing pains might come from there, I'm willing to kind of bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush. I'm going to take cornerback as my number 2 unit on the defensive side of the football, Penn State. And I'm just going to bet on the fact that these are a bunch of guys, known commodities, know what it's like playing at the Big Ten, know what it's like playing under Terry Smith. I am going to put them at number 2. I think you could have this at 1, 2, or 3, and I wouldn't have much of a complaint.
Yeah, like we said last week with linebackers, you can have linebacker, safety, or corner in any order, 1, 2, 3, and I think it's very defendable. Bill, I'm with you, though. I have cornerback at number 2 as well on the Penn State defense, just because I think, again, and I think projection is a good word for this, with the way everyone talks about Zion Tracy, with what I think Darius Dixon, a former blue chip prospect out of Mater Dei in California, can bring you. I think the length they're adding to this room with the young guys they brought in and Aldavian Collins being steady Eddie, I think this group has an incredibly high floor and a lot of proven guys in the Big Ten. And you pair that with the desire to play for Terry Smith, and I'm curious to see what this room looks like now that they've experienced Terry Smith as a head coach. If maybe they appreciate playing for him as a position coach a little bit more now and getting back there. If they're not a really motivated room, and I think this room is going to create fits for a lot of the teams on Penn State's roster, and they have to be ready to live up to a big challenge when USC comes to town in October. And I'm excited to see how they use those first 4 or 5 games of the season to figure out who the top 5 in this unit are, because I think the top 3 is really damn good.
I am inclined to agree with you. I'm now looking at USC because realizing that Lemon and Lane are in the NFL. I'm trying to see if like any of
it's a Lincoln Riley offense. They're going to have good receivers. I don't care where they come from. That's set in stone for me. That's like a good Iowa tight end. Like they're going to find a guy.
If I remember correctly, they've a guy named they have a true freshman named Booby Feaster who is like a stud. Feaster was the number 62 guy in his recruiting class, so
they're always
probably end up being really good. Yeah, and they. Jay Mayav is a really good quarterback. So we will see what happens in that game. As everybody knows, I am very powerfully anti-Lincoln Riley. So I need Penn State to win that game, which means I need Penn State's cornerback room to come up big in that game. Matt, let's play a game.
Let's play a game, Bill. As listeners to this series know, we close this out by playing a game called Who He Play For, inspired, potentially directly stolen from inside the NCAA's game of the same name. It has been a crazy offseason for Penn State. A lot of guys have transferred out, but are still in college football today. And I am going to ask Bill who he play for. Bill, by my count, there are 4 former Penn State cornerbacks still in college football today. I said last week, Bill, I feel confident you will get 3 of them. So, Bill, we'll start off with the guy whose name has come up most in this Penn State preview podcast because he was Penn State's top corner for essentially 2 seasons. A former Georgia player, big 5-star recruit, came to Penn State, spent 2 years here. But, Bill, A.J. Harris has moved on. He is playing his final potential 2 years of college football elsewhere. So, Bill, A.J. Harris, who he play for?
A.J. Harris plays for the Indiana Hoosiers, and I'm to make another inside the NBA reference with how he decided to go 1-2-3 Cancun on us last season. I am very interested in how he fits in on a Curt Cignetti football team where I don't think anything like that would be greeted warmly. I think he is a very, very good football player. I think when he's locked in, he is a very, very good cornerback. I'm just very interested if the issues that he showed last season are issues that are going to pop up again, or if a change of scenery are really going to change a lot for him.
I think that's good self-awareness from Harris to go play for Cignetti, because the way he more or less quit on the team last year isn't going to fly under a maniac like Cignetti. So I'm very interested actually to see what he looks like at Indiana. All right, Bill. A Florida recruit, played a lot for Penn State, actually scored a touchdown for Penn State last year on a blocked field goal in Iowa City. Bill, Elliott Washington, who he play for?
Elliott Washington. Did he go back to Florida?
He did not go back to Florida. He is south. And Bill, I have a really big hint for you, but I'll let you take your first official guess first.
I will start by guessing Virginia Tech.
It is not Virginia Tech, Bill. Pardon my voice crack there. Bill, he now plays for a team who Penn State played last year.
He plays for a team that Penn State played last year. They didn't play West Virginia last year. Did he go to Clemson?
He did go to Clemson, Bill. Well done.
Good for him.
For Dabo Swinney in the Big 26. So best of luck to Elliott Washington. Had a pick for Penn State, I think, against Northwestern a couple years back. That was pretty good. I think he had one against West Virginia a couple years back. Hope he's able to put it all together. All right, Bill.
Yeah.
A guy who never really saw the field, but was kind of highlighted for his versatility on the practice squad over the years. I think a Philly kid originally, Bill, Kenny Wosley, who we play for.
Kenny Wosley, is he a Virginia Tech guy?
He is a Virginia Tech guy, Bill. He has followed James Franklin as part of that mass exodus. Bill, Kenny Wosley is the last player we will mention who plays for James Franklin at Virginia Tech. Now, there is no one else in the cornerback room, and there are no safeties there. So, best of luck to all those guys down in Blacksburg.
Keep talking for a moment, because there is something that I just thought of about Virginia Tech and the transfer portal. But I will see if this is me talking out of my ass or not in a moment.
Okay. All right. Last one, Bill, and I'll take a long time to tee you up to allow you to do the research you need, and that's called being a director. All right, Bill. A one-time Penn State football player, never saw the field, but I believe he was from Florida, a fairly big-time recruit that Penn State was able to land out of the Sunshine State. Bill, John Mitchell, who he played for.
Ugh.
Transferred out ahead of last season, so he's been out of Penn State for a while now.
John Mitchell. Ugh.
You got this right last year on this same podcast when we did who he played for last year.
Well, here's the problem. I don't remember. So I'll say Arizona State and accept that I'm wrong.
It is not Arizona State, Bill. It is a different.
Give me a hint.
Give you a hint. What's a good hint I can use for this school specifically?
I mean, I got it wrong already. So if it's like a really obvious hint, like if you
it's not. I'm trying to think if it's a Ted Roof connection. Like I'm trying to think. I think Ted Roof was like a longtime defensive coordinator at this school. If I can tie it back to Penn State in some way.
Georgia Tech?
It is Georgia Tech, Bill. Well done.
Ah.
So he is down there at Georgia Tech with, like we mentioned last week, former Penn State scholarship punter Alex Paqueta, former Penn State defensive tackle and one-time Georgia Tech transfer Jordan Vandenberg plays now for the Chicago Bears, America's most generous and only morally good franchise.
Sure. The thing that I realized with you mentioning that bit about Virginia Tech and Kenny Wosley is the guys that they got from Penn State are all guys who were either like super, super, super young. Michael Troutman, Malachi Williams, Cortez Harris, Kenny Wosley, Randy Adrika, Matt Henderson, Daniel Jennings, Jeff Exenor, or guys in the like James Franklin. I'm just always going to hype this dude up. Grunk is the one exception. But that or like guys in the James Franklin, I'm just going to hype this guy up for all.
I think Grunk was a Danny O'Brien follow.
Sure. Totally makes sense. But in that second group, it's Tysier Denmark, it's Luke Reynolds, and it's Keon Wiley. I'm just now realizing like the guys that they grabbed transfers from Penn State, it wasn't like they went in and, it wasn't like they took Rocco Becht, Ben Brahmer, Marcus Neal, that kind of guy. So it's very interesting the way that Franklin used the portal to bring Penn State guys. And that's also, kind of a consequence of how Penn State's team was assembled last year, with it just being a bunch of like veteran-laden guys. But it's really, really interesting. I never actually like taken the second to really go through and look at their class, but it's other than really Grunk
and Reynolds, I would say.
And kind of Reynolds. I mean, Reynolds is a bit of a unique case. It's a lot of guys who just like didn't really do a ton at Penn State. And, even on Reynolds, a guy who I like a lot and I think is a really, really big talent, last season, 26 receptions, no touchdowns. So it's not like he was light for 257 yards. So it's not like he was lighting the world on fire. So very interesting. I am sure we will be forced to follow Virginia Tech football for a very long time. So I wonder if that'll be a thing that really pops into my head again. Matt, any final things you want to say before I wrap up this podcast and we get a drink and then we go do the safeties podcast and just let that sit around for a while?
No, Bill, I'm glad you called that out because I was really debating if I wanted to change shirts in between when we record these two podcasts to give off the illusion. I'm not going to do that. Enjoy the first week of camp. It's always fun when stuff comes out from camp. I think the media is going to get a quick look at practice.
It's usually fun when stuff comes out. Sometimes stuff will come out like Max Granville tore his knee up, and that stuff isn't fun.
Yeah, that's never great. It's the season's getting so close, Bill. Like, we are really coming up on it very, very quickly. I have like one more trip left this year, and then it's pretty much full steam ahead to college football season, where my weekends will be spent on my couch or at the bar. If you're in Chicago and you're part of the Penn State Alumni Association, can you please let us know, or let me know, mjflip19@gmail.com, what the bar is going to be now that Smoke Daddy and Wicker Park closed down? Please tell me. Durkin's is great, and I like Durkin's a lot, but I like sitting outside. So if there's a new location, please post it on Instagram, or somebody please just let us know. That's my PSA. I'm putting that out there weeks in advance so someone can tell me. Because there was a spot, Bill, that's owned by a Penn State alum that they're like rebranding the restaurant, but I haven't heard any news on what's going there or what it's going to be. And they have a great outdoor space. So please tell me.
Yeah. In Central Ohio, Penn State's alumni chapter, they do like events and stuff, but I think a lot of the people are based in like the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. So it's, for me, the person who lives like right in the heart of downtown, it can be a little bit tough to get out to when they do game watch parties and stuff like that. But I will be watching. I will be locked in. I will maybe make it out to watch a game with them, which I think the only games I've ever watched with these people are various Ohio State games and then the Oregon game last year. So also maybe I won't do that.
Maybe not.
Maybe I will. They're all wonderfully nice people, but maybe these two forces of wills coming together in various suburban bars in Columbus, Ohio, is a bad idea. But regardless, we're counting down. We're getting ready. We're getting fired up for college football. It is now August, so it's right around the corner, and we are excited to talk about it with you through this very blue and white biased lens and perspective that we have. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. As always, make sure you go and subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice, whatever your podcasting platform of choice might be. We're there. We would love it if you could subscribe. We would love it if you could leave us a 5-star review. Please go subscribe over on YouTube. Matt talked about that a little bit earlier, trying to get our numbers up.
Yes, please do.
Over there. Go subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Help us out, grow our following on YouTube, hop into the comments on YouTube, have fun with the people who hop into the comments on YouTube. Hopefully someday people will do what on our podcast, what happens on a lot of YouTube videos, which is in 20 years, someone will comment and go, who's watching this in 2046? That would be really nice. Make sure you're following us on both Twitter and Blue Sky. And one last time, everyone, thank you for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. For Matt Filipovitz, I'm Bill DeFilippo. Take care, everyone.
All right, I waited to the end here because now I'm going to be mean. If you're the guy who is chirping us in the podcast feed with this message, howdy Lions, first time, long time.
That's a friend of mine.
Hold on.
This is a friend of mine.
Oh, is it? Is it a friend of yours? Oh, yes. Is he a Pittsburgh fan?
He's a Pitt alum.
Oh, is he a Steelers fan?
He is not.
Oh, I was going to say, anybody from the Pittsburgh Metro Complex can only chirp us when they have a team advance to the second round of the playoffs this decade.